because I said he'd be late, he's here. Welcome to the Des Moines Register Political Soapbox. I'm Carol Hunter, politics editor of the Register. A few comments on the decorum here of the Soapbox. Those who have signs, please keep them down during his speech so that those behind you can see the speaker. And let's please exercise our Iowa civility and allow each candidate to have his say. Our next speaker is David Young, running for the 3rd District of Congress. David is a Republican from Van Meter. Many of you know him as the former Chief of Staff of U.S. Senator Chuck Grassley. His opponent this time out is Stacey Appel. She's a Democrat from Ackworth. David.
Thank you. And thank you, Carol, and the Des Moines Register for what you do to make this happen. It's a two-way street, and here we go. Well, first of all, the sights and the smells of the State Fair, it's something I look forward to every year. You know, I worked here at the State Fair during junior high over at the Coke Plaza stage at the time, and worked on the Bill Riley Talent Show. I was a stagehand, setting up risers and microphones and all those kind of things. And, you know, he paid us in root beer tickets and tickets to Ye Old Mill. But it was worth every moment of it, so. You know, I'm a 6th-generation Iowan. My family came out here in 1881 from Germany, and they farmed. They worked on the railroad, built churches. They settled up near Varina and Fonda and around Newell and Pocahontas County. And eventually the family moved down to Van Meter. Now they came out here for many reasons that maybe your families came out here. For opportunity, for that American dream, for those God-given rights enshrined in our nation's most sacred documents. They settled down in Van Meter. My mother's parents, Grandpa Johnson, was a preacher, itinerant farmhand. And my grandma worked at an insurance company doing clerical work. But Grandma Young had Young's Cafe in Van Meter. And my mom and dad met in junior high, where they eventually got married. After he got out of college at Buena Vista, my mom helped work to save up for the first car and the refrigerator. And my sister, my brother, and I, we just had a great small-town life. Good. You know, there's more common sense in Van Meter, or on any corner in Van Meter, or on any corner here, than there is altogether in Washington, D.C. I'll tell you that right now, and you know that. I started off at Buena Vista College and then went over and transferred and graduated eventually from Drake University. And worked a few years around Des Moines for Norris Financial and started getting my paycheck, as many folks do when they graduate from college. And they wondered who FICA was getting some of their money, their paycheck. And so they started taking a look at public policy, their tax dollars. And I wanted to do something about it. And I got interested in policy and politics, and I went to Washington, D.C., and I knocked on Senator Grassley's door. Couldn't get in there the first time around because, nobody leaves Senator Grassley's office because he's such a great public servant and a true citizen legislator. But the last 7 years, I've had the honor of working for you, working for Iowa, side by side as Senator Grassley's Chief of Staff. And nothing puts you more in touch with Iowans when you're on the phone with Iowans every day, hearing about their issues, their problems, their concerns, their solutions. Or you're in meetings with Iowans every day, face to face, seeing tears sometimes about the government coming down on them, and you find ways to advocate for Iowans within the federal bureaucracy. So I've seen what works and what doesn't work, and a lot of it doesn't work. But I've seen what can be done and how to get it done. Now that American dream is still there. I'm an optimistic person, and I know Iowans are too. There are 3 deficits I talk about that I see that are big challenges that we have to overcome and tackle, and we can do it. It's the budget deficit, the jobs deficit, and the trust deficit. And these are the issues that I've talked about in the primary and continue on talking about here in the general election because it's a message that all Iowans can resonate with. We have almost an $18 trillion budget debt. Isn't that astounding? It's so hard to quantify that. You can only take on so much debt. You can only get so much credit. And you know what happens when you get overwhelmed? They take the car away, maybe the house away. We have to to change the way we budget in Washington. You know, 49 states, by state statute or state constitutional amendment, they've got to balance their budgets. In Washington, they do this baseline budgeting. And what that is agencies and departments, they come up to Capitol Hill, and members of Congress, they just give them the same amount of money or a little more, and there's no transparency. There's no accountability. So many times you have no idea what they're going to do with the money, and sometimes you find out way afterwards that they use it for nefarious means or just stupid reasons. The EPA flying drones over farms, or Department of Justice selling guns to drug lords in Mexico that come back and kill some of our own. So we need to change the way we budget. We need to do what a lot of states are doing, a lot of municipalities are doing, and that's zero-based budgeting. What that is, you make these agencies and these departments come up to Capitol Hill and pretty much beg and justify every dollar they need and want. Therefore, there's more transparency. You get an idea what they want to do with your tax dollars, and they're your tax dollars. And we need to do an audit of the federal government. You know, people talk about auditing the Federal Reserve. I'm for that. But I think we should extend it government-wide, folks. There's so much waste, fraud, abuse, and mismanagement in this federal government. You know, we heard a term a few years ago. We learned a new word called sequestration. And we were told the sky was going to fall. There'd be riots in the streets if we did this. But no, there wasn't. You know why? Because there's so much fat on this federal government. So we have to tackle that, and I'll be there to do it because I'll be a taxpayer watchdog for Iowa. And you know, they pass these laws, and we've come to find out a lot of times they don't work. They hurt the economy, they hurt our liberties at times. We need to sunset legislation. Give it a timeline where it expires. And then you can ditch those laws that don't work, that harm our economy, our liberties, and we just move on. We just move on. The jobs deficit. In Iowa, we're doing pretty darn good. One of the lowest unemployment rates in the nation. And, you know, you can thank public policy or political leaders for that, but you know what? I say look in the mirror. Because you folks, Iowans, it's just wired in our DNA to work. We just know how to get the job done, and we do it despite the odds. But you know what? Nationwide, our unemployment rate's too high, and we also know that the underemployment rate is probably double or triple that. You know, some of our neighbors, our family, our friends, they're just giving up. They're just giving up because of the lack of some opportunities that are out there. So we need to create a playing field out there to unleash this economy. Get the government out of the way. The rules and regulations, some may be needed, but sometimes they're just preposterous and bizarre. We need to tackle those and unleash this American spirit, this opportunity for this generation and the next generation. Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, it's really harming this economy. I talked to employers, employees, and we were told that our insurance premiums wouldn't rise, that we could keep our insurance, keep our doctors. Not so in all these cases. Not so at all. Could we have done some things to our healthcare system? You bet, but not give 1/6 over to the federal government. They have trouble managing anything. We should have taken away those state barriers that prohibit you, your family, from shopping for insurance across state lines, much like you do for car insurance or home insurance. Expand health savings account, tort reform, price transparency. There's many things that can be done that empower the consumer, improve the relationship between doctors and patients and employers and employees. We have a Department of Energy. Can anybody tell me what our national energy policy is? I don't think we have one. We need to pass that Keystone Pipeline. We need to pass it for energy security, energy independency, and for our economy. You know, I was out at Maurer Manufacturing in Spencer, and they make trailers, really big trailers, and they can haul that pipeline. They said if they can get that passed, they'll hire more people, more drivers, more welders, good paying jobs right here in Iowa, and getting us off the trough of Middle East and foreign oil. We can do it here, folks. We can become energy independent. And if you really want to get at this economy, we have to tackle the fat and bloated and confusing tax code. 75,000 pages are in that tax code, folks. If you have problems sleeping at night, anybody here have insomnia, you just whip out that tax code, and after page 1, you'd be in deep, deep, deep sleep. It is complicated, it is burdensome, it is confusing, and it's not fair. We need to have the debate, the full debate. We need to have leadership at the federal level from our president, who makes it a priority, and members in Congress as well. Have the debate with the fair, the flat tax. But most of all, let's make it permanent, where there's certainty. I've met so many folks, entrepreneurs, small business leaders, and owners. They want to grow their business. They want to invest in this economy, but with a patchwork tax code, my goodness, they just sit on their capital. We need to make it permanent and certain so we can unleash this economy and get people to work. And then that trust deficit. You know that the approval rating of Congress is less than 10%. I wonder who those 10% are who think they're doing a good job. I'd like to meet them. But we have a government that doesn't create wealth, it consumes wealth. And we have a big government that's watching us, and somebody needs to keep an eye on it. You know, there are powers that members of Congress have called oversight. And I will use those powers to watch this government. And I don't care who's in charge of the administration, Republicans, Democrat. I will watch your tax dollars. I know those tools to get in there. I've learned them from Senator Grassley, and other members do them as well. But that's one way. When gridlock is there and the wheels of government stop in Congress, those are tools that you can use. The tough hearings, the tough speeches, working with the media when you can, hauling administration officials down to the office and saying, what are you doing trying to regulate dust, EPA? What are you doing to our farmers? We can't have that. And we have a president who says these scandals that are real, he says they're phony. And you know that they're not phony. Our government sold guns to drug lords in Mexico that came back and killed one of our own, Brian Terry. That's not phony. That happened. Benghazi, 4 patriots died. And we had a Secretary of State at the time who threw up her arms and said, what difference does it make? That infuriated me. I know it infuriated you. It makes all the difference in the world, folks. For accountability's sake, so that it'll never happen again, and those families deserve to know what happened. You have an IRS that wanted to know what you wanted to pray. It's none of their business what you pray. None of their business at all. Infiltrating and intimidating conservative groups. And as Republicans, if there's a Republican administration doing that to Democrat or liberal groups, we should have stood up, and I will stand up and say, this is not right, this is a First Amendment right. So I'm ready to serve you on day one. I understand the problems. I understand the challenges. And I'm someone who wants to have a seat at the table. I don't need this job, and nobody should need this job out of personal gain or resume, but I want to serve because I love my country. And I love my state. I love her people and her land. And I want to make sure that this great experiment is there for the next generation to come. I'm David Young. I'd appreciate your vote in November. Have a great day at the fair.